Rossi. I'd like to welcome you to the gallery on this, not the most beautiful day in the world, and in times which are perhaps slightly uncertain, but invigorating, and maybe that's not inappropriate for the time when we're exhibiting Konstantin's work here, which expresses battles of giants, sometimes in the guise of pygmies, perhaps. Anyway, today it's a conversation between Pamela Kemper, who is part of the AAA, which is the Asia Art Archive, and she will say a few words about a very commendable institution which holds one of the largest collections of contemporary writings, is that writings on contemporary?
Publications, yes. Writings and ephemeral material.
And obviously Konstantin Bessmertny himself, and I think you'll have a rather invigorating conversation designed also about Konstantin. So, first of all, Pamela, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank everyone at the gallery and for co-hosting this very interesting, I think, a gathering. And as we were saying with Renzo earlier about conversation, so you please forgive my Italian because I'm here with all the experts. What I'd like to start with is to say that you are an incredibly accomplished draftsman, yet you seem to fuse now a very idiosyncratic critical style of your subject. Sometimes it could be a kind of irreverence towards classicism, but I know from your early drawings and paintings you're so established, and I just wondered, could you tell us a little bit about that background, that shift from your training to where you are?
Yes. So anyway, I was privileged enough to have like a proper training, art training. So witnessing now, I have lots of friends who finished like academies around the world and so on. They all complain about the same subject, as we call the hardware. So the thing is that music actually much luckier than visual arts, because the basic for music is the score, the system. And even rock and roll musicians, they still use the same thing. But basics for visual arts is the drawing. And not drawing like from photos or whatever. It's completely complicated subject of knowing how to draw is completely ignored. So, and I was privileged enough to have this kind of proper education. It's probably the last dinosaurs living here. That are still continuing. They know the teacher who knew how to draw, who studied from another teacher, and so on. So, if I trace my a tree, so my teacher was a favorite student of the founder of social realism, Jorgensen. I'm talking about beginning of the century, just after revolution in Russia. It's St. Petersburg. But he was one of the best favorite teachers of one of the best realists of the old Russian like empire, so Reagan, for example. So in this case, you trace, and those guys were studying drawings and all these kind of basic things directly from French academies, whatever. So the Anger style of teaching how to draw. Here we have a sort of basic things that are not easy to know. And then the paintings, the use of paint and colors and composition. Also, I was lucky enough to pass by with the academy. We have very strange combination because I've studied fine art in Vladivostok. It's extreme Orient. It's just next to Japan, and I studied it during Brezhnev time. And it's luckily enough for us, the older teacher was sent out of Moscow because of their progressive thinking or whatever. So clash with the regime. So we were lucky enough to have a kind of rebellious artist teaching us. So we had this classical, mixed of classical education, but at the same time, for example, we had a great aesthetic teacher of aesthetics who she was the head of club, cinema club, where we could watch the movies that we could never watch in a common cinema. We met people, we could, art critics, music, film critics coming especially from Moscow to give a talk about Fellinis and so on. So imagine it's like 16th, 17th, you have this, you expose yourself to all these kind of things. It's not just about how to draw and paint, but also the subject of art itself. So, painting, of course, teacher of paint, and combination was nice. So, for example, the very military kind of dictatorial style of drawing, plus very free sort of Matisse late post-impressionist concept of putting use of color of paint. And then composition, of course, we had a burden of social realism, so we had to carry on. But the whole kind of rebellious sort of in between the lines concept of like secret messaging. Okay. And luckily I was working part-time when I was a student. I worked for newspaper. And my newspaper, director of my newspaper was a kind of dissident Jew. So, but newspaper was like a youth communist newspaper. And I was surprised how cleverly newspaper was managed. So, for normal people, you just ordinary people, you read, you know, common propaganda stuff. But in this situation, he balanced, and I helped him because I was the designer. So I had to balance like a special caricature drawing, or for example, the beginning of the letter. So there was a second message in newspaper that you could, for smart people to laugh about. So second message normally destroyed all that. In this case, I understood the importance of sort of layers of messages. So, and I use it now, until now. It's not just like what you see, it's colors, it's composition, it's motion and so on. But then there are layers of meanings, and probably the last meaning that you could probably discover, or maybe never discover, or maybe somebody later discover, can destroy the first impression.
Because I was thinking about the idea of layering. I'm sure some people know of this notion of the palimpsest, this writing upon writing with sort of scriptures and parchments where people would add writing on top. It wouldn't completely erase the lower level, but then you would have layers. And I feel with the images and the text, the words, they bring a multitude of layers, and somehow we're still at a distance from them. And I think that looking at art at a distance to me has been something that I've just really started to experience now, and a connectedness from viewing your work and coming back to it. I mean, could you tell us a little bit, we talked about, say, the irreverence of the master narratives in contemporary art. I mean, for example, in the postmodern period in the 80s, people were reacting against the kind of meta-narratives of art history and saying that, you know, there's no authenticity anymore from the reproduction of the images. I mean, it would be wonderful if we could all go and see some of these original works in their own setting, but we don't. Most of us know art history through reproduction. And reproduction, and for you, the notion of the copy of the copy of the copy is almost what we're surrounded with here, because we have over here Raphael, for those of you who may know. We can talk a little bit about the title of the exhibition, Causarum Cognitio. Causarum Cognitio, meaning, as people with Italian, causes of knowledge. And causes of knowledge was actually the title of the first title given by Raphael to his original work, which is in the stanza Raffaello, part of the four rooms of the Vatican. So, in fact, as we know it today, it's called the School of Athens. So, would any of you have made that connection had you not known those, for example, those words and those ideas? And I guess for me, it's like, oh, my art history coming back. Yes, now I know where they are. And yet you can see there is some compositional relationship, the idea of clusters of figures. The same with here. We have Michelangelo, we have references to Rubens, we have references to Leonardo. Tell us a little bit about all of these amazing art historical connections here.
Of course, and the subject of history of art, yes, we've studied it. We travel a lot, the beginning, even St. Petersburg, the Hermitage has a great collection. So you could have, like, even we were close to kind of Soviet Union to travel, but you still have an idea of history of art and what it's all about. Also, lots of influences in Moscow in architecture, and there was in St. Petersburg from kind of original source of European culture. It's Roman Athens. So in this case, you know, I wasn't like a newcomer to discover it. So using the quotation of the famous paintings, it goes back to the same things with just I said to you about the chain that connects teacher to student and teacher again and so on. That was kind of a common thing for many generations of artists in Europe. So partly copying was the part of the teaching process. And if you see even Raphael, he was even his Athens School of Athens, he on almost finishing stage, he went to see first time Michelangelo Sistine Chapel fresco on the ceiling. He came back, he destroyed part of it, and he tried to kind of copy Michelangelo into it. So everything was so much into kind of looking at somebody else's success or a success of achieving something, colors, technical success, and then kind of trying to put it on your own. If you see history of art, it's always there are always influences. So in this case, no one can erase and tell that I'm original from the zero, from the ground. So even crafters from the tribal kind of societies in Africa and so on, they also have some idol to copy. Of course, they maybe they interpret it and so on. In Chinese culture, it's just unbelievable. There are staged so well, so that student has to be a certain experience, a certain age, only to achieve to move from painting bamboo leaves to something, to putting birds onto painting. So it was very much restricted. Also living in Macau, back to school, one of our program was even to learn how to copy. So we spent one summer just copying old masters. So I had my Raphael school painting, of Raphael school, and German school, like 13th century, painting of unknown artists.
You mean actual
Actually museum, you know how students come with all their stuff and stuff. But to copying it wasn't just to copy. Our teacher told that the system is more complicated than just last surface. So we had to discover how was it, the layers by layers, how it was built. So the more important was like to find out how the first layers work, like how he started with. And then, of course, even composition, you have to change. The rules are the same. You have to change the size slightly. You have to add something additional. You can't copy the signature of the artist, and you also have to put at the back that this is copy of those. It's a proper way to copy and to learn how.
So it's an homage to someone at the same time.
Because it's the best way to learn. There are so many things that you cannot explain because this knowledge is not a formula. How to paint, how to draw. So you have to get it yourself. So there will be satori, like kind of wow, discovery.
And in your own work, though, you seem to blur as well. I mean, are these mistakes that you're trying to? Are they genuinely a kind of off-centered idea? People rushing through some movement. Tell us a little bit about some of the characters, where they come from, because you say your son studies philosophy. And we think about the word preposition that comes in, and we think about Wittgenstein, the philosopher, and his prepositions, language of visual art, and the language of words. So tell us how do we get Winston Churchill and Plato and who some other figures, Napoleon, all together? Tell us, and these cherubs, so-called saucy cherubs in the skies today.
Yes, and of course I don't have to copy Raphael, and I don't want to copy Raphael. He's great. He's good enough. There was one thing I liked a lot. There was Grunewald, Peter Grunewald. His latest thing he does something with the painting. So sometimes he gets permission of using like Raphael torches. Peter Grunewald, filmmaker. So he does the lightings and so on, specifically like calculated and so on. And I like once he asked in Milan, he asked permission to do something like this to Leonardo. And the mayor of Leonardo said, no, Leonardo is good enough. That was brilliant. So you don't actually need to add something what is already brilliant. So in this case, I don't like to follow Raphael. I just take the structure, the drawing. Actually, it's not Raphael drawing. It was drawing of his patron, architect, was Bramante, yeah? So he actually advised Raphael the structure and the composition to make. Raphael was a young guy, protected by the architect knowledge, because it was kind of patronage. And so in this case, I use more architectural kind of concept, and I fill in with the figures from the everyday life. I live in Macau, so the inspiration comes from everyday life, as we know, for artists. So I think too much of this kind of Lady Gaga or whatever concept that goes on in Macau over and over. And this sort of absurdity brings you up. I was inspired with this, and so I kind of it's sort of combination of James Bond, Lady Gaga, pool party into the Renaissance surrounding. So of course to play up with the classical composition, to bring up. No, I call this type of paintings. I don't put it in a serious, but like. Living in the times of great ignorance. So, because we are quite ignorant now, we are not interested in much that goes around. If you don't have much money to get after it, if you don't have a connection to make, and so on. So in this case, we're losing sense of curiosity and curiosity to knowledge, to origins and so on. So, I try to kind of to add some subject that, for some people they don't need to know. But if somebody will find some phrase or find some common composition, common things, and they will rediscover the world, and they will be more curious and to finding out. So I don't feel like I've achieved something. Of course, this was painted for myself, so I just wanted to do that. So, but if somebody else will get my idea after, so I'll feel.
And here in the room next to us is the accuser, the figure pointing towards us. And we were thinking about this earlier, this idea of I accuse. I mean, are you accusing old master painters of something that have robbed you from your childhood?
Yes.
Of what you can never get away from? It's like Italian contemporary art, they can never get away from the past, and what can they do that's different? I mean, how come you're still connected but not, in a way?
It's all cycle. So you couldn't get away during the medieval ages, but then they came back again. So it was Renaissance. So European culture is all about Athens and Rome, and I think it would be later as well. The thing is that because in this modern time we influenced more by the more exotic influences like tribal and Middle East or Asian, so even Van Gogh you could place him like the best interpretation of Japanese art, for example. Even the brush strokes were kind of imitation of woodcuts of Japanese woodcuts. No, what I was saying that here accuser came from one painting, and it's like it's like idol a little. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. I broke this transportation. I broke one machine, so it's kinetic sculpture. It's supposed to point on anyone who comes close to 5 meters. I'm trying to fix it now, and after 3-4 days, I hope I sent the DHL. I already spoke to gallery and the electrician, so it could be easily attached. I'll fix it, and come and see how it will work. So this idea of accusing, yes, it goes for common subject of somebody knows more or somebody knows this and has a right to accuse. And
I think maybe
it's absurdity.
With some of the artists that you're also dealing with in competition with each other at the time, and also quite interestingly, this notion of the battle. We've already said this concept, and just as we arrived, Martin showed us The Lost Battles, this book, Jonathan Jones, looking at the exact subject matter that we're surrounded here on left and right, Leonardo and Michelangelo, the duel. So now we've got assaults and duels and battles, we've got Mike Tyson, we've got Bulldog, Winston Churchill, battles of conflicts. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about more of those synergies?
I just spoke to my son. Really, the interesting part of any kind of art is like actually contradictions. It's a battle. Everything is very smooth and positive, comes to kind of no interesting matter. So you always have to have black and white, or strong and soft to clash. So in subject of art is clash. Of course, I put it in absurd exaggeration that there is white and black fighting, or there is kind of a need for battle. And
so could you tell people that these two are the two battles that Leonardo and Michelangelo were fighting for on the panels in the...
Actually, it started not with the idea of that we all knew from the history of art. This. But it came with the idea. I worked before with the subject of with some Chinese artists about the copies faking, because Macau is just close to Zhuhai, and it's very easy to cross the border and to find lots of studios that copy something. And there are lots of my paintings as well. Sometimes in such a way that you are kind of you disagree about it, because they change, they extort composition.
What did they do to your pictures then?
No, I mean, like from small painting on wood, they make it a big canvas with acrylic. I have lots of writing sometimes in Latin, and of course, because they can't do it, so they sort of put instead of like some shadows on it or whatever. So they kind of play around quite a lot. Sometimes they're trying to copy signatures, but also it's a bit difficult and so on.
It's like dubbing in films, the dubbing in
Yes,
English, where you get the word somehow completely different to the original.
And in Venice Biennale, in 2007, my subject was actually copies. So I tried to exhibit copies in Venice. They were exhibited copies of Canaletto made in Zhuhai. So I commissioned and correct some artists. So we produced a number of body of works. Some paintings were just ridiculously bad. And you kind of bringing it as its set feeling of, and Macau also helps with this, because we have like a copy of Venice in Macau. We have Venetian.
The Venetian.
So parts of Macau
casino.
In the last 5 years become, with the canale, with gondolieri, and
yes, I think that's interesting that we don't have to travel anymore to go to
Yes.
places, do we? We can all. We've even. Where are we in Shenzhen? We've got the Eiffel Tower, the Tour Eiffel.
Oh yes, yes.
Replicas of these things. So the replica is interesting too, I think.
No, of course, it depends on like how you respect the original. So in this case, I always try not to offend the things, but this subject is, I'm not going after Leonardo because no one actually knows how those paintings looked. Everything was destroyed.
Yes.
There were minor important artists who were trying to copy parts of Michelangelo battle and Leonardo battle. Originally, for those who doesn't know, there was a municipality commission of Florentine Republic for the frescoes, 2 frescoes, and they were called like Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons of the time, Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, to do 2 different battles, and all people were supposed to decide who was better. Unfortunately, it didn't work with Leonardo. He experimented too much. At the same time, Michelangelo wanted to do sculptures. He didn't like to do, so he did just a drawing. So, but there was some source of conversation of myths and stories that invented by other artists and people who've seen it, and then it was destroyed. So there is a lot of concentration of material about even Vasari witnessed the making of the paintings, but at the same time Vasari painted over the painting of original painting of Leonardo. So you don't know and it has no story, visual story of it. So and I decided like, why not I had it already.